Every once in a while, the ground beneath our feet reminds us that it is not as solid as we like to think. One moment, everything is normal, and the next, the earth splits open. Massive cracks tear across farmland, neighborhoods, deserts, and even major highways. Some of these events have clear explanations, and others leave scientists scratching their heads. It started as a small line in the dirt, but by sunrise, people were staring at a crack more than 2 miles long. In 2014, residents in southern Arizona woke up to one of the most dramatic earth fissures ever recorded in the region. A massive crack had split the desert floor open near Picacho Peak, stretching for nearly 2.5 miles and plunging up to 30 feet deep in some sections. Locals thought it was an earthquake, but the United States Geological Survey confirmed something stranger. There had been no seismic activity that night. The land had split because of a slow, invisible problem happening underground. For decades, water from deep aquifers had been pumped out for farming. The ground above those empty spaces began to sag. Most of the time, the surface drops slowly, but in certain areas, the strain builds up until the ground finally gives way. The crack grew rapidly and expanded over the next few years. New drone footage showed it clearly snaking across the landscape like a scar. Scientists mapped it and warned that more fissures will form in the future. The real mystery is that even with all the data, they still cannot predict exactly when or where the next one will open. Imagine driving down a major highway and suddenly the road ahead has split in half. That actually happened in Kenya. In 2018, heavy rains swept across Africa's Great Rift Valley. One morning, residents in the area of Mai Mahiu woke up to find a gaping crack more than 50 feet deep, slicing straight across farmland and ripping through a highway. The event was so dramatic that news outlets around the world reported it as proof that Africa was splitting into 2 continents. Scientists quickly clarified that the continent is indeed slowly separating along the Rift Valley, but it is happening over millions of years. The crack that opened overnight was something else. What really happened was a combination of soil erosion, underground water flow, and older rift fractures that became reactivated during the rains. The ground eroded so quickly that entire sections collapsed almost instantly. Homes were swallowed. A family cooking dinner reportedly had to run from their house as it broke apart. Authorities had to shut down the highway, and geologists rushed in to stabilize the area. The event was real and dramatic, and even though scientists explained the mechanics, locals still describe it as the moment the continent reminded them that it is literally tearing itself apart. One morning, farmers walked out to their fields and found a crack so massive it looked like the desert had opened its mouth. In 2014, a gigantic fissure appeared overnight near the town of Hermosillo in Sonora, Mexico. The crack stretched more than 3/4 of a mile long and dropped nearly 25 feet in some places. Scientists were stunned at how clean the break looked. There was no earthquake that night, no strong storm, nothing obvious that would cause the land to split so sharply. Researchers from the University of Sonora investigated and discovered that irrigation canals had weakened the soil. Heavy rains saturated the ground and caused it to collapse down into underlying voids. But here is the strange part. Locals say they heard nothing. No rumbles, no shaking. The crack simply appeared by morning. Drone footage revealed how sharply defined the edges were. It looked like it could have been carved with a knife, and even today the region remains unstable. More cracks have appeared nearby, and nobody knows exactly how far the land will continue to drop. In 2015, hunters in Wyoming came across a crack so massive they thought the entire hillside was breaking off. At first, it looked like a shallow trench, but as they followed it, the ground suddenly dropped into a huge open gash. By the time experts measured it, the crack stretched for more than 2,000 feet and had sunk nearly 150 feet down. The story went viral online, sign, and some people believed it was the start of a major earthquake. Others insisted it was a sign of volcanic activity. The real explanation turned out to be a combination of rainfall and slow-moving landslide activity that had been building underground for years. Water had seeped into old fractures and weakened the hillside until it finally gave way. Even though scientists figured out the cause, what scared everyone was the speed. Locals said the entire crack formed in only a few weeks, and that parts seemed to appear almost overnight. Drone footage shows the massive size of the collapse, and the mysterious part is that there were no loud booms or dramatic shaking. The ground simply opened in silence, which makes it a little more unsettling. When a school bus-sized crack suddenly opened in Ethiopia, scientists realized that something huge was happening under the surface. In 2005, a massive fissure appeared in the Afar region of Ethiopia. It grew to more than 35 miles long, and in some places it was almost 20 feet wide. What makes this event different is that it happened along the boundary where tectonic plates are pulling apart. Ethiopia sits where 3 plates meet, creating one of the most geologically active places on Earth, but nobody expected the land to open that dramatically. Scientists confirmed something incredible. The crack was a result of underground magma forcing apart the crust, creating a giant fracture that grew rapidly over only a few days. This event was so unusual that researchers from around the world rushed to study it. They discovered that the crack was part of a much larger process that will eventually create a new ocean basin in Africa. In other words, the land is slowly stretching apart, and the massive crack in Ethiopia was one of the rare times we got to see that process happening in real time. A farmer walked outside and found a canyon where his pasture used to be. It appeared almost overnight. In 2018, after days of heavy rain, a giant crack opened in a farm near Rotorua on New Zealand's North Island. At first, the farmer thought it was a small ditch caused by flooding, but when he approached it, he realized the scale was enormous. The crack was almost half a mile long and in some places nearly 70 feet deep. Geologists called it one of the largest fissures discovered in the region in decades. The reason it formed so suddenly is that the land sits on top of volcanic deposits laid down thousands of years ago. Those old layers weaken when soaked with water, and once enough rainfall saturated them, the ground collapsed, exposing layers that had not been seen since ancient times. Scientists said the fissure was likely the result of landslide creep that had been slowly moving underground, but locals insisted it felt like the crack came out of nowhere because nobody noticed any warning signs. The most interesting thing was that researchers found traces of ancient volcanic ash inside the crack. It was like opening a time capsule created by nature. Residents heard a deep rumbling in the night, and by morning their village was cut in half by a massive crack. In 2011, in southern Peru, people woke up to a terrifying sight. A crack nearly 2 miles long had opened across their land, stretching through fields, hillsides, and even under homes. Some buildings collapsed straight into the fissure. Others tilted off their foundations. Villagers reported hearing strange noises the night before, but no major shaking. Scientists later discovered that the area was built on unstable clay and sediment layers left behind by ancient lakes. Heavy rainfalls saturated these layers until finally they failed. The surprising part was how fast it happened. Satellite images showed almost no sign of a problem until the night the crack appeared. Locals were forced to evacuate, and the government sent teams to measure how quickly the land was shifting. What appeared after one of Pakistan's deadliest earthquakes shocked even longtime geologists. In 2013, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck the Awaran district of Pakistan. Entire villages were destroyed and hundreds of lives were lost. But in the aftermath, satellite images revealed something unusual. A massive crack had formed across the landscape, stretching for more than 100 miles. Some parts were several yards wide. Farmers reported that the fissure seemed to appear instantly during the main quake, ripping through fields, roads, and hillsides in seconds. The crack was the result of a surface rupture, which happens when deep faults suddenly move and break through to the surface. But what made this one so shocking was its size and how visible it became from space. Geologists said it was one of the longest surface ruptures recorded in that region. The crack also revealed new information about the faults beneath Pakistan. Scientists discovered that the quake had pushed land upward by more than 10 feet in some places. Researchers watched in real time as a crack kilometers long tore through the ice like it was paper. In 2016, scientists monitoring the Larsen C ice shelf in Antarctica reported a crack that began extending at an alarming rate. At first, it grew slowly, but then it suddenly accelerated, reaching more than 120 miles long. Large ice cracks usually build up over long periods, but the final stage of this one happened quickly. Some days it grew more than a mile overnight. Although the crack formed in ice and not rock, it is one of the most dramatic and scientifically important fractures ever observed. Scientists know that ice shelves can break apart due to warming temperatures and underlying ocean currents, but the speed of the Larsen C crack surprised everyone. In 2017, the crack finally broke through, creating one of the largest icebergs ever recorded. It measured nearly the size of the state of Delaware. What makes this event significant is that researchers were able to monitor it in detail. They still do not fully understand why some cracks grow slowly while others suddenly accelerate, and the Larsen C fracture is a reminder that even the most remote parts of Earth can change violently and without warning. Locals found a crack that seemed to lead straight into a mysterious crater scientists had been studying for years. In northern Siberia, the Yamal Peninsula is known for its strange permafrost craters, but in 2020, new cracks appeared that alarmed researchers. One of the newly discovered fissures measured nearly 150 feet long. It formed almost overnight after a rapid thawing event combined with gas buildup beneath the surface. This region sits on large pockets of methane trapped in frozen ground. When the permafrost melts quickly, pressure builds up. Sometimes the gas erupts catastrophically, forming the massive craters the area is now famous for. In this case, researchers believe the crack was an early warning sign of one of these eruptions. Scientists photographed the fissure and found that warm weather had melted the permafrost faster than expected. This allowed the ground to sag and split, and even with all the research happening in the region, experts still admit they do not fully understand how quickly pressure can build beneath the frozen landscape. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.